today we are asking, be honest. Have you ever completely read agreements or terms and conditions of an app or service you've downloaded? Just be honest. Have you? Yes or no? So our question starts with, be honest. Have you completely read an agreement or terms and conditions of an app or service you downloaded? Tell us.
Are you asking this in this?
If it's yes.
Are you asking this in this Accra? There's no time for that. Listen, there's no time for that.
I know a few people who say they have completely read it.
I don't believe them.
The whole thing. Before pressing agree.
30 pages.
Well,
some 15 pages.
Well, we'll see.
Wow.
If you're one of the few people that have read this, we'd like to hear from you.
What is
if
in there?
If you've actually read the whole thing.
We want to know what's in there.
Before you tap agree, that will be something we want to know.
Listen, we want to know what's in there if you say that you've read. But for me, I'm saying that this is Accra. There's no time for that. We don't have time.
Tell you what about whoever is able to read the whole thing? Would invite you to the show to come and share with us what's in there.
Now now they want to read.
The whole thing in there. If you have, please send it to us on our social media platforms, GHOne TV and xPressive Show. Plus our WhatsApp numbers that are on your screens and will be on screen shortly as well. This is xPressive. My name is Bliss King.
My name is One Jackie. Don't go anywhere. It's definitely going to be exciting.
Remembering the great late Ebony today. She was born today in 1997. I really died so young, so I'm here, so continue to rest in peace. Before we speak to the digital Okonfo, let's speak to a real tech enthusiast and an IT expert about those terms and conditions we started talking about in the beginning. When you download an app or use a technological service, it comes with an agreement and terms and conditions, which are mostly long, so I believe most of you do not read the whole thing. That's why today we're asking, if you've truly read the whole thing, please reach out to us. We want to know. You never know, we might bring you onto the show for you to explain to us what you read in there. But we have someone who understands all of that too and has read this countless times just because he makes it a job too. Please welcome back to our program an IT expert, Stephen Nkansah. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
It's good to see you. Where's the energy today? Bring it, bring it, bring it. How's everything?
Everything is cool.
These terms and conditions, I asked you before though, let me ask you again. Why are they so long?
I think they are, this legal, anything legal, it's supposed to, exactly, so I think basically that's the reason why. And these developers wouldn't want to leave lapses so that in case you infringe on them, they can really grab you properly. So I think it's the reason why they used to be long. They can be in lengthy pages, and it's up to you to read them to understand what is in there. But in the end, whether you agree or disagree, your preference in wanting to use the app overrides the agreement. So for instance, you want to do word processing. Do you subscribe to Microsoft's terms and conditions that binds Microsoft Word usage? If yes, then you should be able to use it. But if you say you don't subscribe to them, then that means you have to think about
it. It means you can't use it.
Fantastic. That's what it means.
Let's backtrack a bit and explain to us what are really end user agreements.
So when you
and why are they on every product?
Okay, so when you pick end user license agreements, basically when you pick any application, now for you to use them, they are supposed to be legal clauses. The legal clauses will spell out what you can do, the extent to which you can go with those applications. So with basically every software, even when you spend money to buy it, it doesn't mean you own the software. It's more like you're renting it to use for the time being or for the period within which you would want to, use it. So you have no rights or whatsoever to be able to make certain manipulations to it, unless if it's an open source something. So now when you pick these applications, the manufacturers would want a system where you are able to kind of use it within the intended purpose for which it was developed.
Unless it's open
source.
Open source.
Yes.
Which means that you can alter things.
Exactly. Okay. You can pick it and modify the source codes or tweak it to function the way you want.
Okay.
But if it is not open source, like Apple applications, Microsoft, applications, be it system or application software. So when we say system software, we're talking about the basic operating system that, let's say you buy a Windows device, it comes with. When you pick your Apple iPhone, comes with iOS. So now, these applications, the manufacturers or developers would want you to stay within certain confinements. So for instance, if you purchase the software license, the EULA will spell out how you should be able to transfer this license. And why you shouldn't, or, if you want to tweak it, what the procedure should be like. But if it is not an open source, you forget about it. So basically, these are the reasons why end user license, it is there to bind you to stay within the clauses or terms which the manufacturer or the developer prefers you to stay within.
Of course, many people are curious what are in these agreements, or what particularly these manufacturers of these apps want us to know or agree to before we even begin to use the application or the software. Yep. Let's go onto our screens now, if you may. Okay. And you can walk up there and show us what are some of the portions of this agreement we should really be looking out for when we open the software.
Okay, so when you pick some of these agreements, so these are privacy statements.
Privacy statements.
Yes. Okay. So when you pick end user license agreement, basically every application comes with, aside the end user license agreement, there are lots of other linked agreements to the EULA that you are reading. So when you pick the EULA, it will basically state how you should use the application, should in case you want to transfer it and all that. Now when you pick these statements, there are additional clauses in them which may not be directly stated. So that is where people end up not getting to know what the nitty-gritties to these EULAs are. So when you pick these privacy statements, we are going to group them in 3 major brands. So we have one from Microsoft.
One from Microsoft.
And we would have for Google.
Okay.
And then we would also have for Apple. So we'll do these 3 major.
Okay, let's start with Microsoft.
Okay.
It begins to read, Microsoft collects data from you through our interactions with you and through our product for a variety of purposes described below. It means they are telling you that I take your data. That's what they are saying.
Yep.
Okay.
So what they are trying to let you understand is once you want to use their application or product, there are certain data and information they will collect.
They'll collect from you, the user.
From you, the user. Some directly pertains to the application you are using. Others also pertains to the application being connected to other. So for instance, you would want to use a Microsoft application to, let's say, edit your photos. But that application is supposed to have access to your GPS location. That means whatever GPS information that app will collect, Microsoft will also keep that information. That's what it basically means.
Okay.
So when you pick this, this, information from Microsoft website, as the URL at the top, indicates. So now, all right, so when you pick certain applications like Microsoft Office 365, Bing, OneDrive, and all that, they are applications which you, the user, basically, for you to subscribe to them, you put in your basic information like your username, probably your email address,
the country,
your phone number,
location,
the country you're coming from, all this, your address and all that. So Microsoft is going to pick all this information. Now, in as much as Microsoft will pick this information, don't forget that Microsoft also has a right to pick additional information from you from other sources.
They have the right.
They have the right. And even aside that, the information they are collecting, they equally have the right to give it out. For instance, to governments or other parties.
They do?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So your government can, contact Microsoft to take certain information about you from Microsoft. And this information can be very detailed. So we would, skip to the next, slide. All right, good. So when we come here, it's simply talking about, now it's saying, when you see, when you look at this, red circled form, kind of section, it's saying you have choices when it comes to technology you use and the data you share. So you have the choice. So indirectly, Microsoft is telling you, either you use it or you don't use it.
Is it that if you don't like my terms, don't use my app? Is that what they're saying?
It's as simple as that. And it continues to say, when you're asked to provide personal data, you can decline. So for instance, the application is asking you to enter your name, your phone number, all these, details, or, information. You have the option to, to reject providing this data and information. Now, many of our products require some personal data to operate and provide you with service. Now, if you choose not to provide data, to provide data required to operate and provide you with a product or feature, you cannot use the product or feature. Likewise, when we collect your personal blah, blah, blah.
So they're telling you that if you cannot provide your personal information, then feel free, do not use our product.
It's as simple as that. And you know, this clause here, when you pick all the other brands, like the Google, I'm picking these 3 major brands because when you pick the daily applications you use, I mean, these guys, the Microsoft, the Apples, the Googles are providing, let me say, about 90% already. Good. So these clauses are similar. If you go to Google, they have similar clauses. If you go to Amazon and all that. Good. So now these are some of the data that they'll collect. Your name and contact data, your credentials. So it's as simple as Microsoft is also going to keep your passwords.
Yeah.
Good. Now your demographic data. So your age, your country,
your age, your gender, your country.
Exactly.
Your preferred language.
Exactly. Your payment data. So if you used a credit or debit card to make payments,
your bank cards,
they have the right to store all those data. Your subscription and licensing data, which is, I mean, very basic. So if you purchase the license, and then your interaction, that is data about your use of Microsoft products. So
I think that's a real catch there, yeah?
Exactly.
These interactions, these are the real catch of the data collection.
Exactly. So how often do you use the other applications? They have the right to collate all those, I mean, data.
Which people do you contact more? What kind of information do you receive a lot?
Exactly. So, you know, at the end of the day, they are harvesting this data. It aids in marketing. You know, there are pros and cons to all these data collations. You know, but at the end of the day, yeah, you can choose to decide not to. All right, so data and usage data. So data about your device and product. You know what this means?
No.
Microsoft knows, I mean, even the device on which you've installed the application.
Okay.
So if it is a Dell XPS laptop, or let's say if it is a Windows operating system that came with your device, they even know which phone you are using. Yes, basically that's what it means.
Okay.
Good. So, I mean, feature including the hardware and software, how our products perform, as well as settings, for example, your payment and account history, your browsing history. So, even the site you visit.
They know all that.
Fantastic.
Device connectivity, configuration data, they know all of that.
They know all that. So basically, I mean, you've submitted everything about yourself to them. So they would even end up knowing about you yourself than you think they would know.
They handed over your life too.
Exactly.
Let's move to another company, maybe Google. Let's see.
Okay, so
what would be the differences?
There are certain few points. There are points I would want us to highlight more.
Okay, right. Let's go there.
So like we're saying, if you are to export this, I mean, whole end user license agreement or privacy statement, trust me, there's about over 20 pages. So good. They store information about your search commands, your voice data. Good. So, for instance, I brought Amazon Echo here, and we're giving Alexa some commands.
Yeah.
Google also has their voice assistant, which you can give commands. What, I mean, Microsoft is trying to tell you is, for their system, I mean, their applications also, they have every right to store even voice commands you give. Yes. And the interesting thing is, I mean, your phone even kind of listens to you even before you give it a command, be it a phone or PC.
The phone listens to you before you give it a command.
Fantastic.
So let's say if I want to put Siri on now. Siri is already listening to me before I speak.
It's already listening.
Oh, wow.
But it's because it's not responded to you yet. So you think it's not listening. Until it hears the phrase Siri, then it lets you know that, okay, I'm already listening. So that means that all this while it's been listening to you.
Siri, are you listening to me?
So, for instance, you pick the Android devices and you say, hey, Google. Or you just say Google.
Yeah.
And Google Voice Assistant pops out. That simply means that it's been listening to you.
All this while.
So, Microsoft is basically trying to tell you that that's what they also do. And they keep all this information. Now, if you have to look at this, I mean, portion, it says, this may include background sounds.
It means sounds of other people.
Fantastic.
Let's see my producers in the back, Jackie, the cameraman, the studio. They're picking all those sounds now.
Fantastic. So you're agreeing to this.
That's
your social data. I mean, information about your relationships and interactions that you make. Your location data. And as well as, but you know, the location data is not just a problem. The problem is, They keep details even as much as the direction to which you are moving.
That's true.
You understand? True. And yeah, basically these are, I mean, all things that people...
That part is sometimes helpful, right? When you put your Google Maps on, and it can just automatically show you where you're going to. If you're going to your house, it knows the best routes for you because you've used it many times.
Yes, but I think, you know, some of these features and services should only get activated as and when you need them.
As and when you need them.
Fantastic.
Contacts and relationships. It says data about your contacts and relationship.
Good.
If you use the product to share information with others, manage contacts, communicate with others, and improve your productivity. This is like you talking to your loved ones. They have all that data too.
but you see, all these are there. This for just Microsoft.
It's for just Microsoft.
Now, WhatsApp just says that, okay, we capture your data. We want to share your data with Facebook. You know, Facebook and WhatsApp are same company.
Same company.
And, you know, there is a whole brouhaha. People rant.
You think people shouldn't be outraged about WhatsApp trying to share data with Facebook?
You look at these. Look, even WhatsApp doesn't store some of our data on their service.
Okay.
So, for instance, I mean, you can decide to back up, and if you don't back up images, you don't get to see them another time.
Okay.
That is provided you restore or you lose that image on your device.
Yeah.
That should tell you that even those data you transfer.
Yeah, if you delete the chat with somebody, you lose all the images and the videos within that chat.
Exactly.
Right?
You understand? But Microsoft, you are not choosing to back up.
They are backing up for you.
And they are keeping it for you. Good. So this is Microsoft. Yep. So content, video recordings, I mean, feedback, your traffic data, and every single thing. So even your, let's assume you have certain routes you use, frequently. I mean, look, they're even just keeping information about
Steven, join me back on the desk and
okay, so this is just for Microsoft.
That's just for Microsoft.
Yes.
We'll talk about Apple next week.
Just
join me.
All right.
Just join me on the desk. Interesting stuff you just showed me now.
Yeah.
Even for someone who uses a lot of devices and also apps, it's like I have never read this agreement, so there are things in there I do not know about.
Yeah.
Thanks for throwing a lot of light on these things, and even though some of them are shocking to me. But lastly, before you go, you think people shouldn't be outraged about WhatsApp trying to share data with Facebook? Why so?
I personally don't think so.
You don't think it's a big deal?
Yes, I think what is making it a big deal is, you know, for Microsoft, they've been in the game for a very long time. These privacy statements, they have had them already. Now, WhatsApp, I think Facebook acquired WhatsApp a few years ago. So it's now that probably they want to capitalize on data they are capturing on WhatsApp, to be able to make some profit. And making this amendment is what people, just don't understand. Else, if WhatsApp were to have been developed by Facebook initially, I'm sure they would have spelled out all these already. So then people wouldn't have.
So you're saying if you don't like the new terms of WhatsApp, don't use it?
There are lots of other alternatives.
Stephen Nkansah, thank you for joining us. We'll continue next week on this very screen, and we'll talk about the other companies also and their privacy agreements. It's really interesting stuff. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, too.
For always coming. Stephen Nkansah is an IT expert and always sheds light on the really amazing stuff technologically here on the show.